As part of a grassroots effort created by guardian spouses to help build community and connection, we bring you our February 15th, 2024 candid conversation with Chief Bentivegna and his wife, Cathy.
Hey, thank you, Amy, and everyone for allowing Cathy and I to spend some time with you tonight. I got to tell you, when Cathy originally told me that we were going to do this today, so close to Valentine's Day, it was a lot of pressure. I felt a lot of pressure because I didn't want to get on here and then have Cathy complain that we're having a couples marriage discussion, and then she's going to judge me for what we did on Valentine's Day. But actually, right now we're up in Breckenridge, Colorado. As you know, we had the Air and Space Force Association warfighting conference in Denver, Colorado this week. And it just so happens that we had some time here up in Breckenridge at our timeshare. So we're on leave right now, just kind of decompressing for a couple of days of engaging with family and friends and guardians and airmen. But this is kind of the secret sauce. Every once in a while, Kath and I try to get away. So forgive us for drinking some wine and getting ready. We have dinner later on, but this is our 1 or 2 days of leave to get a chance to do that.
Yeah, you said it.
I thought you were gonna brag about me.
Oh yeah, like he's the most perfect husband, I mean, we've been together 30 years. I trained him really well. That's why he's doing really great.
So, you talked about Candace and Amy that marriage in and of itself is difficult, right? It is a challenging endeavor for people. But when you throw in military life on top of that, it just adds more complications. So I think maybe a little bit to kind of talk about Cathy and I's journey, with that. Cathy and I were married before I even entered into the Air Force, 30 years ago. We were married in May. That's when we got married. We dated for several years, and then I went to basic training in August of that same year. So just a couple months later. So what does that mean? That means we got married after a couple of months. She told me, get out, go make something of myself, and I went to go join the service to do that. And so we've been on this journey together from the very beginning. It's very interesting. I tell General Salsom all the time that he may be the CSO, but Cathy outranks him by time of grade. So she's really my boss in the end. But it's been, our philosophy is kind of being on this journey together. And as you said, we've had the opportunity to raise two amazing adults. But even that story, and we're all a little different kind of how we start. But, when Cathy and I first met, we kind of started instant family. Cathy was previously married. So Neil, our son, was like 3, I think, when we started getting 2. So it was very immediate, right? We got married. I was instantly a husband, instantly a father, instantly an airman a couple of months later. So it was a lot of stress. And, through the years, like many of you know, there's ups and downs through 30 years, but we've persevered through it, and it's been an adventure. But we've learned a lot. And I think one of the things that Kath and I are very comfortable with, we share a lot of the kind of the lessons that we've learned, over 30 years. And, really excited, to kind of have an opportunity to kind of answer some of the questions and see, kind of what's on your mind as we go through that. But I'll tell you just a couple of thoughts for Cathy and I. I think that, one thing for military service and how to make marriage kind of successful with military service is, I think we try to do this together,
yeah.
Right? Whether, try to get Cathy, in the organizations that I've been assigned to for 30 years, to kind of make, whenever I had to do a function or do something for official duties in military, to kind of bring Cathy and the family into it. And then also let Cathy kind of build relationships, right, with the spouses and then the men and women that I worked with in uniform. But really try to not put pressure. I don't think, did I put pressure on you?
No, never.
To kind of do that, you kind of did it on your own.
Yeah, you just paid me money under the table.
Mine took you shopping.
Yeah, that's right. He took me shopping.
But that kind of allowed Cathy, I think, to feel like she was part of the journey with me without maybe undue pressure to kind of do that. And it was kind of similar with our children. And as we went through, whether it be barbecues and events or volunteering that we did, but to try to bring the children into it as well, kind of allowed us to have some quality time, not only with the children, but also kind of with, when I had to do official kind of functions to do that. But it's interesting, though, the children have a real passion and appreciation for service, neither one of them showed interest into joining the military. But they never really kind of expressed they were kind of concerned with that.
Yeah, no.
That kind of coming out, but that's one of the challenges I think in the questions, Amy, that you sent. How do you stay connected with the loved ones and your family members? We're trying to make a lot of the things through the years kind of family endeavors, as we go. The other thing I would say that we've learned through the years is, as military members, as military families, we have access to a lot of amazing services. And Military One Source is one of those. And Cathy and I, several occasions over 30 years, have leveraged, Military One Source for counseling, for advice, whether through relationships or financial. But I try to encourage guardians and airmen, when I was an airman as well, to take advantage of that. Because sometimes, you need that third party, that somebody with a different perspective to kind of help you work through some of the challenges that marriage and raising a family comes up with.
Yeah, like a relationship check, like if you're not feeling well, you're feeling sick and you can't get over it, then you would make an appointment, you would go to the doctor, and get your wellness check. And it's the same thing with marriages. You know what I'm saying? If you're kind of struggling a little bit, you're questioning stuff, go to a marriage counselor and get that relationship check. You know what I'm saying? To make sure that you guys are okay. Because we've done that before. Like, let's go somewhere, let's go to a marriage counselor, even though we don't have any issues, just to have that checked and balances, with our marriage.
we had issues.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so that we encourage people to do that, and it's helped us, right? And again, we're one couple that's kind of been together for 30 years. Everyone's kind of in a different situation, but that's kind of things that we've learned through the years. The other thing I think that was in a question that you had asked or prepped us with, Amy, was, what do we know today after 30 years of being together that we wish we would have maybe known in the beginning? I would say one thing for me personally is that, valuing or understanding the ability to not sweat all the small stuff, right? To kind of appreciate Cathy's love language. For several years of our marriage, rather the first 7 or 8 years, there was a lot of friction point on my end, a lot of frustration that I didn't understand Cathy's love language, and mine was different, and it kind of caused a lot of, I think, some stress and dissatisfaction that I was kind of feeling, and it caused tension between us. And that was one of the things when we went to counseling that we kind of talked about.
Yeah.
But I wish I would have known that in the beginning. We learned it through the journey together, and I think that we've been able to kind of really move our relationship on after that, because I understood kind of, what it is that from affection and how you showed, care for me, care for the kids, and how you valued me and valued the marriage. That was a little different than kind of what I was looking for, but learning to kind of understand that, and then vice versa, right? Me providing Cathy's love language, which was usually a glass of wine, a foot massage. That's right. That breakfast in the morning, doing the laundry. That was Cathy's love language, but it took me a while to figure that out. But those are kind of things through the years that we've kind of learned. And as moving around 30 years of service, going from base to base, state to state, you move away from family and friends, and really, right, they're loved ones. They're the ones that our extended family, if you will, in addition to our actual family. How do we stay connected, right, to do that, to keep the family intact? Cathy does a really good job with keeping connected with people, social media, emails, phone calls, text messages. I'm terrible with it. I'm horrible. But Cathy, one of her strengths in the marriage, right, and then leveraging the strengths and weaknesses between the two of us kind of allowed us, right, to kind of stay connected and rooted with family members back in Jersey and New York, and then friends that we've made throughout all the different assignments that we've gone to. So Cathy's really good at that. For me, I try to, when Cathy, through those connections, when we get together, we're traveling TDY somewhere, get together for dinner, or, like AFA, right? The perfect example this week, getting a chance to kind of reconnect with individuals that we haven't seen in years. I try to strengthen those relationships by kind of having meaningful conversations whenever I can. And it's hard, but I try to reconnect every time I can and try to focus. Cathy yells at me a lot because I get into conversations and I go too long. But that's my way. If I haven't seen somebody in a while, I really want to know, hey, what's going on with you and your life and your family, to try to fill in the gap that may have been 1 or 2 years that I hadn't seen you, to kind of show not only because I'm interested, but also to kind of refill that cup, if you will, and kind of re-strengthen any maybe weaknesses in the relationship we've had through the years. But it's really a team effort, and that's been the thing, right? Leveraging Cathy's strengths, me acknowledging my weaknesses and being comfortable with those. I think it's it's kind of helped 30 years of us get through that. And then I think from a professional standpoint, we've been very blessed that Cathy has been able to continue to grow, her profession as, independently, and, my ability to kind of support what Cathy's trying to do and her ability to support mine. And that's also been very strong, right? Because there's give and take, right? When I asked Cathy to, hey, there's an event, I'm going to TDY. She said, hey, John, I have a conference call I need to go to. I'm going to a summit, my offsite, right? My senior leader offsite for her company, to understand that and value, right? That her passion and what she's trying to, do for herself and her professional career is just as important, no matter how many stripes I have, no matter what office I'm in. What her career is just as important as mine. But through the years, there was some stress there a little bit.
Yeah.
But learning, right, that it would be I was being unfair to Cathy by asking her to make sacrifices on my behalf, and that we had to meet somewhere in the middle to do that. That was another thing I think that helped alleviate some stress and pressure in kind of, I think, trying to make you more satisfied with other things, right? Not only the marriage and the kids, but your profession and the things you were focused on as well.
Yeah, but in the beginning of our journey, Air Force, Space Force journey, we did talk about it though. Like, okay, whose career are we going to focus on? Because I had a good, I have a good career, but I'm like, I'll support you. I'll go wherever you go, and I'll figure things out. And it all worked out, luckily enough, for my career.
It has been, and I'm glad it's going strong, because someday when I do retire, she's going to be my sugar mama, and I'm going to stay home and do nothing.
Yeah, no, I'll retire too.
All right, so Amy, we said a lot of stuff, but I really want to value the time of everyone on the net and kind of go through, maybe ask some questions, have a discussion.
Awesome. I do have one question for you. Watching your change of responsibility, the big takeaway that I left with was how focused you were on including family into that theme. Very, very family, I could tell it meant something to you. So what kind of family culture are you hoping to help establish that's going to set us apart from the Air Force in your last 4 years?
So I'll start off with Cathy. I'd like to hear your perspective too, and your engagement with spouses. I would say that, my interaction over the last, several years, especially the last several months, with all the senior enlisted advisors, the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, everyone values and understands, appreciates that all of us, whether it's commissioned or enlisted, that we recruit officers and enlisted men and women, but we retain families, right? We recruit service members, but we retain families. That is vitally important. And having policies and programs that take into account, right, family life, the needs of the family, is important. Now, at the end of the day, right, the mission has to get done, but it's vitally important, right, that we account for the family. For the Space Force, one of the benefits that we have, at the end of fiscal year 24, we're hoping to have 9,400 military members. That not the civilians, but just uniformed officers and enlisted, 9,400. We're such a small service. But what that allows us to do is to have a more intimate and personal relationship with each and every Guardian, to understand what's going on in their lives and their families' lives as we make these mission decisions on development, requirements, assignments, again, those things you have to have the lens that we're a military service, but allows us to not have those discussions and make those decisions absent of what's going on in the family members. As a matter of fact, just before this call, I'm in a group text right now with one of my enlisted members and their spouse. I've never met the spouse before, but there's some things going on and they're asking me for advice, expressing their kind of concerns, frustrations on some things. But it's kind of a direct connection to me. And right, when you talk about the other services, when there's 500,000, 300,000 people, it's much harder to kind of have that kind of connection and relationship. I know Joe Bass would love to be able to do that. She just can't, right? I think it's a little easier for us to do that. So the culture that General Saltzman and I and Ms. Kelly, as we work on what are the human capital policies and how we do things, is really to kind of account for family members, because we have the ability to do that at such a small service where the other ones can't. They wish they could, because we all value the family. We know we retain families, but I think that's a strength that we have to kind of embrace to be able to do that. And then Cathy.
Well, what I was going to say, so obviously for us, family comes first, but I mean, he joined he enlisted in Air Force, Space Force, but it's not just him who enlisted, it's our whole family. You know what I'm saying? That enlisted, because it affects all of us. So we make sure that if we have, like major decisions and stuff like that, to involve the kids so that they know what he's doing, you know what I'm saying, and support it that way, and making sure that they all understand the mission, and making sure that our kids are taken care of. We'll be building memories, with this journey and everything. So that's
I would say too that, with the leadership team that we have behind the glass doors, which for those of you maybe don't see that, that's, in the Pentagon, that's myself, General Saltzman, General Gutlein, the Secretary of the Air Force, the Undersecretary. We call it behind the glass doors. All of us, right, are really trying to make, especially on the spousal side. So Cathy and Jennifer Saltzman get a chance to travel there at Buckley Space Force Base just earlier this week, and engaging with spouses and spending some time with them and hearing kind of what their concerns, successes are. How do we take some of those great examples of things and propagate that throughout the service and share it. I've shared a couple of things that I've learned on the visits that you and I have been on with the other senior enlisted advisors from the other services. But it's kind of a team effort, right? Just like Cathy and I get out there and want to engage and have a relationship with the members and the families. I think General Saltzman and Jennifer are kind of doing the kind of same thing. And we're excited to have General Gutlein on the team now that he's kind of relocated from LA. But I think that's another thing from a service perspective, again, taking advantage of the small size to kind of help what's different about the Space Force and how do we account for the family's desires and needs, embracing the fact that we're smaller than the other services.
Thank you guys for answering that. I'll open it up if anybody else has any questions. If you want to raise your hand or put it in the chat.
So Mandy, my glasses, I don't have that good eyesight.
Yes, sir, Mandy. I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, but how do you guys work on finding balance now between your marriage with the increasingly busy workload for you and for Cathy as well?
I'm talking a lot.
No, so I mean, it's a challenge. It's a hard balance right now, because he's so busy, he's traveling, I'm busy, I'm traveling. But when we get together, we make sure that we spend quality time with each other. Like, we love food, so we always go out, try to find the best restaurant wherever we're at. If I'm with him, or if we're in DC, Virginia, I mean, the best wineries. We go to, concert. We just try to do fun stuff when we're together, and even at home, we're playing with our dogs. And we just want to make sure that when we see each other, from the various trips that we go home to, I mean, that we're listening to each other, we're communicating, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, it's like Cathy said, it's a challenge. I mean, there are some months when we may have 4 days we're under the same roof in a month, because Cathy's traveling for her business. I'm traveling for things I have to do for the Space Force. But we really try to, if we only have a couple of days, like we'll try to take advantage of it and say, okay, let's get out of the house. Like, what do you want to do? Go to dinner, go do an outdoor activity, depending on the time of year, go to dinner. It's important. But the other thing too is when you talk about balance, I try not to use the word balance, I think, because sometimes you have to focus more on your relationship and your family than you do on work. And sometimes you got to focus more on work than your family. So someone taught me this years ago, and I try to use the phrase harmony. What is the harmony? How do you master the harmony between work and life? And that's kind of a swinging thing. And through the years, I have screwed that up completely. And Cathy and the kids are really good at letting me know, right, that I am out of kilter, that my harmony is out of balance. But in that harmony, it's like the little things we talked about. Cathy's love language and understanding what her thing is. So I'll share with you, right? When we have a couple hours, maybe on a Wednesday night together, I'm watching Housewives. I'm watching Below Deck, right? I'm watching the Kardashians, because that's right. When I say, well, let's spend a couple hours quality time together, that's what Cathy wants to do. Right. So that allows us to kind of connect, and we can gossip about it, talk about it.
Right.
And then there's times when I want to go for a bike ride,
Yeah.
or I want to go to a brewery. Right. So we find that middle, like that balance, that harmony together. Even though it's not necessarily what my first choice is on some things, but I know it means something to her. If I'm sitting there on the couch with her, drinking a glass of wine, watching people behave badly on reality TV, then, hey, it's an investment in our marriage. It's an investment into Cathy. So those are kind of things that we kind of go through. And it took us years to learn that, right? It was not right there. I mean, I remember we were younger. Like, if you didn't want to go do something I wanted to do, we'd argue. I'd get mad. I would sulk. I'm bad at sulking. What is it? What do you say that I am a passive aggressive?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm passive
Like,
aggressive.
he won't say it, but I know it's not. I'm like, just tell me,
Yeah. But it's a journey. But that harmony, it is difficult. But really, I would say that when we have time together, we really try to, like, what are we going to do that will allow us to kind of connect? And sometimes that's things that are important to me, and sometimes that's things that are important to Cathy.
Thank you.
That makes me laugh because it's so relatable. As I'm listening to you, I'm watching my husband, and we're both sitting here like, yep. So thank you for that advice, and just kind of letting us all know that I think that's a common feeling that we're all kind of trying to balance. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I see someone with a hand up. Jim? Do I see a hand up for Jim? I'm sorry, I can't see the last name.
It's Amy's husband, Jim Seelix, chief.
Oh, okay.
So I do have a couple questions, but I'll just start off with one on the size of the force, and then some of the situations you might find yourself in that harmony. With our ability with technology to be able to connect very easily, how do you find the balance? I'd imagine in your position is pretty challenging, but the ability for anybody to be able to reach out to you and feel the need to connect while also being with your family, if that makes sense. Having phones and texts and all of these types of things, but also being able to break and get the mind space focused on family.
Yeah. Hey, sir. Thanks for that question. And it is a challenge. And Cathy's great. I'll say my perspective and let Cathy kind of share hers. So I told you about, like, those sitting on the couch watching Kardashians, or watching, Below Deck Australia, whatever it is.
Down under.
Captain Sandy, whoever it is. There are times where I may be on my electronic device, but I think what's meaningful to Cathy is that, it's in the background, but I am
There.
I'm with her. I'm with her. I'm not in another room. I'm not at work. I'm not traveling. Like, I'm in the room with her, probably sitting next to her. So there's, again, right, that's that kind of harmony. She knows I still something I have to do, but I'm with her to do that. All that being said, I do try not to get drawn into Facebook too much, Reddit, especially in my position. So as you know, I mean, you could get dragged into that conversation, and you come out 5 hours later. So I try not to do that. What I do from a strategy is I have a great team that works with me in the office, and they monitor some of those things, and they'll let me know if there's something out there on social media that really demands my attention. They'll help me and hey, send me a tipper. So I need to engage. But I have people reaching out to me all the time. And I mentioned earlier about I'm on a text chat with a chief and a member and their spouse. That's a little bit of the exception. But I do try to be available as best I can. But my staff helps me to do that. And Cathy's expectations of me, what present means, has allowed me to still kind of facilitate that the best I can. And I don't know what your perspective is. I'll let you share some of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I work in the sales industry. So if anybody, whoever texts me, emails me, Facebook, whatever, I respond to all of it. I do respond to whoever reaches out to me. But I don't think I'm as busy as you are when it comes to,
No, you're on your
but
devices.
yeah, like I multitask. I have an iPad, my phone, and my computer all around me, and I'm like while watching Below Deck.
Yeah. So and this is about the journey we run, right? There was a time where I would get, Cathy, put down your device. Can't you just pay attention to me? I'd obviously, right, the discussion went nowhere, right? That was right entering into a bad position from my perspective. But there was a time, right, that was I would, right, my love language was like, you're not looking at me, you're not paying attention to me. And Cathy's like, it was a losing battle. So it was me getting used to understanding that, Cathy's kind of connected. She can multitask much better than I can. And that stopped being a point of friction between the two of us. And, so a lot of times being on those devices, we're kind of comfortable with that. And she'll know if I say to her, Cathy, like, I need you to put it down. Now it's meaningful because then she knows I have something really important to talk to her about. But for the most part, right, we kind of multitask when we can. But it was all like that harmony that we talked about, sir.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate it. And I'll just offer up for everybody else. That's something I'm always challenged with as well. It's easy to reach out to work. You got Slack and Signal and text and all of these things, and you feel an obligation to reach out to airmen, but sometimes it's making that deliberate effort to be present. And I'm just curious as how you balance that.
It's a constant. It is. I have to constantly be very engaged and mindful of kind of where I am and what I'm doing when it comes to that.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief.
We had a question come into the chat, sir. Thank you for being so candid tonight. My question is, with so many years of service under your belt now, what advice do you have on staying excited about military life, both as a spouse and as a guardian?
Are you calling me old? Are you calling us old?
It did not come from me. Don't shoot the messenger.
I don't know, Cathy. How do we stay motivated and excited?
No, because it's not the same every single day, I mean, the activities, the challenges, everything, it's always coming up. It's always something new, something exciting, something challenging. So it's not, it's not the same. And I love it. I love the challenge,
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, taking each through the years, right? Each job, each place we've been, kind of wringing out the most, right, of that. Not only the geographic location, like where we are, right? So outside of work, but wherever we're living, wherever the Air Force or Space Force sends us, right? How do we maximize that and take advantage of that, right? To kind of keep us excited about where we are, knowing it may only be 2, 3, 4 years, right, before we go someplace else. But from a work perspective, professionally, how do we stay excited? Cathy's been fortunate that her job for many years has been mobile, right? So she's been able to stay in the same profession, within that, to kind of bring that with her, to allow her to kind of, grow her professional reputation and her brand in the area. But for military members, as you move around after 30 years, it can get hard to stay excited. But I think trying to pour myself into the next adventure, what the Department of Defense has asked me to do, I try to embrace that. I'll be honest too, in this position specifically, and I'll be honest with all of you, right, that when the call came out to say who was interested in interviewing to become the Chief Master Sergeant Space Force #2, it was not an automatic raise in our hand, right? I mean, Cathy and I sat down and we debated it on, because this is a lifelong commitment, and whether or not this was something that, as a family, that we wanted to do, and could we not only give back to the Space Force, right? Were we the right people to give back to the Space Force, but could we do it for 4 years, knowing what was going to be expected of us? And it was a deliberate discussion, right? It was not automatic. And we sat down and we talked about it, and I sought some mentorship and some advice from people, and decided. I said, hey, I'd like to interview with General Saltzman for the job. And I will tell you, it has exceeded all of our expectations. As we get a chance to travel around, and Cathy and I get to engage with families and spouses and men and women, I get, representing on Capitol Hill. Cathy's been to the White House several times, talking to Dr. Biden, talking to General Brown's wife, talking about bragging on the Space Force, but then also, hey, what are the families and guardians need, or advocating? That kind of keeps us going, right where we are now. So I think kind of embracing the job that you have, making the most of it, and then also bringing the family into it, right? Exploring your geographic location wherever you are. I think for us has kind of allowed us to kind of keep excited. And then also every year our Christmas card list, or we're setting, grows, right? Think about the Christmas cards, if that's something that you do, the holiday cards from around the world that we get from families that we had a chance to connect through over 30 years. It's kind of amazing. And then when Cathy and I talk to family members and friends that are not in the military but very much value kind of the choices that we've made for service, and they're just in awe of where we get a chance to go, what we get a chance to do. But for us, it seems like, oh, that's just another day.
Yeah.
But it's good, yeah.
Yeah, and another thing is every single year, 2019, 2018, whatever. But in the new year, we always look at each other and we're like, this is gonna be our best year ever. So we look into that year, coming into that year, that we're gonna make the most of that, whatever year, and every year it's like that. That's just how we look at things. We're gonna make the most of it. Life is an adventure. Don't waste it. Make it meaningful. So everything that you do, make something out of it. So what I would say.
I really like that. I was going to ask, from the standpoint of, I know sometimes we have some longer separations. Like we had 1 year remote, and my husband would call every night to say he'd get up really early so he could say goodnight to the kids and stuff. As a married couple, do you have any kind of tips for people that are on extended separations on ways to stay connected?
Yeah, so it's funny, over 30 years, I remember when I went to basic military training back in 1994. So obviously there was no electronic devices, there was nothing that we had there. But Cathy would write me letters almost like a couple times a week. And in true Cathy fashion, she would find fluorescent paper, fluorescent green, pink, blue, and that's what she would write her letters to me on. And so, right, I'm in the dormitory.
In the dark, though, that's right.
And I've got this bright pink letter from Cathy, right? Now, then I'm being mocked, right, by the other individuals around me. But at first, right, it was letters, and kind of write, one another. And then it was, then our communication. But I'll tell you what, though, when we're separated, whether it be for a couple of weeks, or even when I was deployed or did my remote tour, there was a little bit of giving each other space, that we know we were in Cathy was trying to run the house, be a mom, she had a lot of things on her plate. So in the beginning, especially when I did my remote tour, calling several times a week, I found out very quickly at least in our relationship, didn't work out very well because it wasn't necessarily helpful to Cathy for me kind of calling, checking in, right? She was focused trying to take care of stuff. What also I learned was for me not to be judgmental, right? Because as when we did talk, and she would talk about how she was disciplining the children, making decisions about the house and doing things. And I said, I wouldn't do it that way. Don't do that. And at one point she said, you're not friggin' here. Stop criticizing me. You're not the one here making these decisions. And now I'm getting emotional.
Oh my God.
But I learned, right? Just shut up. Right? And then when we did check in, just listen, right? When she needed advice, when she needed my help, she would ask for it. But I learned not to force it because I wasn't there. I didn't understand what she was going through. And I just needed to kind of shift some of that perspective.
Yeah, because sometimes I just want a listening ear. You don't have to solve my problems, but I just want you to listen on what's going on here.
But even now, not because I haven't been deployed in a couple of years, but I'll go TDY or Cathy, you were in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago. We're going like 4 or 5 days, maybe a text, but we won't really have communication, right? It's kind of a little break from one another. And this is kind of why we do it, because then when Cathy comes home, then we have hours to talk about how was your trip, what happened, what's the gossip, right? And supposedly little spurts throughout the week, we kind of say this when we get back together. Then we're looking forward to, I can't wait to tell you, this is what happened, this is what's going on. So that's another thing, at least for us.
Yeah,
that
works.
That kind of works.
Awesome. I have one more question for you. What can we do to not only help you guys, but to help others within the Space Force and each other?
From a spouse perspective, what's your... Okay, I'll start.
Okay.
Cathy told me I couldn't speak unless I was told to, so.
You can speak.
All right, thank you. Communicate, especially from the spouse's perspective. It hurts our heart sometimes when we get a chance and we travel and engage with spouses that are challenged with something or looking for help or information. And for us, it's like, man, like there's a program for that. There's a POC for that, and they kind of seem like simple things that we've kind of built into the ecosystem to allow them to get the support and help they need. But it takes, right? They didn't ask for that help or communicate their need until, right, it's engagement with Cathy and I. So I think, communication amongst spouses and not being shy or unwilling to kind of speak up or share successes or share challenges, all that is needed. I remember, I was a chief master on the Space Force at the time, and you did the program management. I think was it Mary Thompson or Molly Raymond?
Yeah, with Molly Raymond.
28 years serving together, and learned that there was an amazing program for spouses to get training and education and things that there was a small group. There was a group of people who knew that, but we didn't know about it until some kind of oddball, kind of virtual thing that we got together, and Cathy jumped right on it.
Yeah. And I think what we're doing right now is the start of it. You know what I'm saying? This candid conversation, the newsletter, monthly newsletter. I'm trying to get the word out every time I meet spouses. I get all their information, their email, and send them the link so that they can sign up, for the newsletter. It has to start somewhere, and it's starting now. You guys are the one that's making it happen. We need you, because we're family. We're so small. So for us to just get connected and support each other, this is very important.
I would say too, one of the things that from my seat, that I've always valued about Cathy is that Cathy she's blind to rank. Like it's agnostic to her. She'll come back from something and she'll say, I met somebody, they're so nice. You work with their spouse. I'm like, well, who are they? Oh, it's Jim. Well, Jim who? I don't know, Jim. By the officer enlisted. I don't know, I don't care. But their spouse is great. And literally through the years, there have been times when, someone will come to the house, right? And it will be a spouse and a general officer, because Cathy made friends with somebody, right? And they just come over to hang out, right? It's agnostic to Cathy. There was one time, even reverse of that, it was a young mother who was married to a young NCO that Cathy had met and invited him over to dinner with the new baby. She was having trouble adjusting.
Yeah, they just came from Japan.
I had no idea who they were. And I was a command chief of 14th Air Force at the time. And this poor NCO comes to the door and he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. This is embarrassing. I'm like, why? No. Right? This isn't Chief Master Sergeant Bentivegna and Sergeant Smith. It's your wife and my wife are connecting. Rank has nowhere in this discussion. It's spouses that are helping each other.
Making sure she's okay.
You just drove her here, and I'm just offering you, a plate to get some food and something to drink. But I think from a spouse's perspective, I've always appreciated Cathy's ability to be agnostic to all that and navigate. I don't care what level, what echelon, didn't make a difference, what service you were in, but connecting spouses where spouses needed to be connected, agnostic of branch, uniform, or rank. And I've always appreciated that for Cathy. Because, sometimes there's a little bit of that where there's hesitation to engage, right? Because you kind of think, well, hey, I'm only a CGO and this is a GO spouse, or I'm only an NCO and this is a senior NCO spouse. From a family perspective, especially in the Space Force, we got to have freedom of maneuver to do that. That's where we need help.
Thank you for that. Heather, I see that you've had your hand up. Go ahead.
So I have a question. I guess it's kind of a segue from, what was already asked. Is there already a plan in place, and I guess this is probably more a question for Cathy, but is there already a plan in place, or what are we doing to kind of shift the morale in terms of like key spouse programs and deployment programs? And the reason why I'm asking is because just specifically here at Peterson, we have had my husband just deployed. We got married in October and he deployed in November. And so I can sympathize with the getting married and leaving immediately because we're there. But we've had 2 events that have been scheduled. One was rescheduled due to the weather, and that one was canceled. And then we just had one in January that was canceled. And when I reached out, what they told me was they were canceled due to no RSVPs, no participation. And I feel like a lot of the spouses I've talked to here, that has been the feedback we've gotten, is that I guess maybe some of it's due to COVID and then some of it's not really, but the morale to spend time with other spouses, the resources they're there. We can't find them. And I've done a lot of reaching out in the last 2 weeks. And what I've gotten is that the spouse that our key spouse program, the key spouse who actually was here 6 months ago, her contact information is still there. And her and her family, they PCS'd to Schriever down the road, but they PCS'd back in October. So there is no key spouse in my husband's unit anymore. So for me, that makes me really sad, because I at one point was a young spouse with no friends, moving away and having nobody. And so I really want to be able to reach out to these people, but all of the avenues just seem to be dead ends.
Oh my gosh. And I was just in Peterson a month ago And I did talk MFRC. Did you ever reach out to MFRC? Because they're the ones that are actually, I mean, it's a commander's program, but they're in charge of they're running the Key Spouse program. And then when I was there, I mean, from what they told me, it's pretty much alive still. But just trying to find out who the Key Spouse is. You're right. I mean, we can follow up. Like I can follow up with you. You know, after this meeting to make sure that you're connected. And the Key Spouse program is still there, and we are trying to improve it, you know, develop it for the Space Force spouses, especially, and not just the spouses, but also, you know, it's not just a spouse program. It's kind of like helping the whole family, and that's what we're trying to. That's what we're trying to improve. So I'll make sure to get with you, Heather. And follow up.
Yeah, I would love that. But I do want to commend you, because I think that the fact that the very first thing that you all talked about, and that you essentially this whole conversation has been about families. And for me, you know, that's huge. And I think that, you know, that's how it was 25 years ago. My dad was in the service. My dad retired. And it just seems like it's just kind of trickling off, and it's really sad.
And you see, and the other thing that I'm gonna say, you know, so I've been meeting with other spouses from other bases and stuff like that, you know, as a group, and I'm talking to them, and they're saying that, yeah, there's no engagement in that base. You know, they'd love some activities, some socialization. But what I would say is, for your group, I mean, if you have friends, you know, in Peterson, if you know people, just start getting together. You know,
we have
create your own family, create your own group, you know, and
we did.
Yeah, because it has to start somewhere. You know, don't wait until you get an invite from you do it, okay? You create it, you do it, and get it going. That's what I say.
Yeah, you know, from my perspective, and you asked, and this kind of dovetails back into the, hey, how can we help? You know, and being a squadron superintendent and an additional first sergeant, and showing the echelons of command team that I've been on through the years, there is something too where, especially in a deployment model, where sometimes when members deployed, we would ask, hey, can we contact your spouse? Is she willing to share an email address or phone number? To your point, Heather, I was disappointed how many spouses were unwilling to share their contact information so we could reach out for things like that. And we can't make them do it, right? We cannot make spouses, right, provide personal information. Some are unwilling. But here's the other thing too, and this goes on the uniform members that are on this call. We're terrible. Like some maybe that the spouses really didn't want to be contacted, but a lot of times because we didn't go home and bring the form home to our spouse. We didn't talk to our spouse about, hey, you know, this is what it means. It could be helpful, right? Encourage you to provide your information, right? So some of it is on the military member, because we're not always good at bringing information home and explaining what it's about. But there are some spouses that, for whatever reason, just don't want to do that, and it's hard sometimes to make those connections. The other thing I would say, eSpouse is an official military program, and I'll go back to Vandenberg as an example. We had Key Spouse programs which were valuable, but Cathy made more connections and made more friends and was able to get access to more things through the Stroller Warriors, which was an impromptu group of women who recently had children and wanted to get out and exercise, and they'd go running with their children in strollers. And, you know, Cathy, you know, we were empty nesters, but joined the group just to get out of the house. And right. And it wasn't the Key Spouse program, but boy, right. The connections that she made. And then Cathy I'd come home from work and she'd say, John, on the run today, Sergeant so-and-so spouse is having this who can they call? Can you help me get the right? So there's all these informal things, but what it means is, you know, spouses to kind of be willing to kind of put themselves out there and connect. But that's really the first part, right? Is that the spouse is being comfortable doing that. And from a military perspective, and, you know, from the institution, not immediately leveraging expectations on the spouses, right? Which is another thing, right? Some spouses, I think, are afraid to get involved because they think it's going to come with strings attached.
Volunteer or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Run the program, volunteer. We got to.
I'm sorry.
Disconnect from that.
Chief and Kathy, I know you guys have like a tight schedule. There was one last question that I promised we would ask.
Okay.
And so just to be kind of respectful of your time and everybody's time, do you mind if I ask that really quick?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry. I'm terrible. We're not.
No, you're fine. I promised. So the question is what do you think, and this might, you kind of already answered it in what you were just speaking to, but what do you think the biggest opportunity for spouses to help in developing Space Force culture and community?
Yeah, I would say connection, right? Like just getting connected with, with spouses and, being there for each other, going out there. Like if you're, we're trying to create like different pages, social media pages, but you have to seek it. If you don't have Facebook right now, we're trying to develop like that Guardian One app to make it more robust for everybody to connect. But as I said, but this group right here is the start of it. Spread the word, let everybody know, to invite your space spouse neighbors, acquaintances. If you meet them at the commissary, at an event, just spread the word, and we will grow our family so that we can take care of each other. And even single guardians that would need help, their partners, and just make sure that we all take care of each other and communicate, and just don't be shy. We're here for each other. You can reach out to me personally, and I'll make sure that you're taken care of and you're heard. So we're here for each other. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I think that, and it kind of dovetails to your point, Amy, is that to encourage spouses to feel that it's safe, it's okay to get involved. This is a no judgment zone, right? I don't care what rank of the military member is, right? This is family business. And encouraging spouses to get together where they're not carrying in, right, the uniform of the military members. There's no strings attached, no expectations. It's just families and spouses getting together to make friends, right? And then that blossoms into, when I need help, I have someone maybe I trust, someone I can talk to. That will start to build the culture.
Yeah.
But part of it, right, is us making sure that we set up the system, set up the environment that spouses feel comfortable to do that. And we're not judging, and we're not asking for things beyond I just want to meet somebody. I just want to make a friend. I just want to, have a glass of wine, watch a TV show, bring my kids for a play date, whatever it is, and not immediately, right, that I'm sucked into something I don't necessarily want to be in. I think that will really help the culture on the family and spouse perspective of the Space Force.
Yeah, just, supporting each other, making sure everybody's heard, taking care of each other, and that's how we'll grow.
Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you being here with us tonight and spending, an hour out of your evening with us. It really means a lot.